Drivers, start your engine! Beep, 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 yeah! Perez goes off the track, off goes Leclerc, through goes Hamilton! Unbelievable stuff! Crash, here they come, checker flag! Kyle Larson a year ago watched the race from North Carolina. Today, he's a Cup Series champion. Yes, I'm gonna be a star.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of Motorsports Today. I'm Eddie Kalegi, but of course, as we typically do, we'll start with our pit stop. Well, after an eventful 2022 season, Ferrari's F1 program will have a new leader. Swedish engineer Mattia Binotto, who has worked for the organization since 1995 and was the team principal for the past 4 seasons, announced he is resigning at the end of December. The team said in a statement this morning that the process is already underway to find a new leader and that it is expected to be finalized in the new year. Ferrari finished second in the 2022 Constructors' standings, 40 points clear of Mercedes, but a distant 200 behind Red Bull. We'll have more about this and look at some potential suitors to fill the role at the bottom of the hour. Daniel Ricciardo is heading back to Red Bull Racing. The team announced late last week that the veteran will be joining the team as a reserve driver behind Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez in 2023. Ricciardo raced full-time for Red Bull for 5 seasons from 2014 to 2018, scoring 7 wins and 3 top 5 points finishes, but has won just once in the last 4 seasons with Renault and McLaren. Shifting to NASCAR, Rick Ware Racing announced Monday that they will be forming a technical alliance with Ford teams RFK Racing and Front Row Motorsports. RWR will continue to run Roush Yates engines, but their previous partnership with Stewart-Haas Racing, which included Cup starts for Ryan Preece and Xfinity starts for Cole Custer, will come to an end. RFK Racing will be providing land at their compound leased to RWR for Rick Ware Racing to work, hoping to create a more cohesive relationship between the two teams. Cody Ware is expected to remain the driver of the 51 car full-time this season, while the 15 car's suitor is still unknown. Last season, the 15 was used by several drivers, including the aforementioned Preece, 2-time Cup Series winner David Reagan, and road course ringer Joey Hand. And finally, over in IndyCar, a ride swap for 2 teammates at Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. 2022 Rookie of the Year Christian Lundgaard, who had a really impressive first year in the series, he'll now pilot the 45 car, while 4th-year driver Jack Harvey moves over to the 30. Graham Rahal, the veteran of the team, will remain in the flagship 15 Honda. And that is your pit stop. As much as we all focused on the Lewis Hamilton-Max Verstappen championship battle in 2021, a lot of people ignored the positive strides that the 2 drivers in Leclerc and Sainz made in 2021. And that set them up on a silver platter for 2022 to be an excellent year for this team, because there was going to be an aerodynamic change. That could set back Mercedes. That could set back Red Bull. You had 2 developing strong drivers that were on the up. And the fact that this year went as disastrous as it did, Binotto had to go. I think people are underestimating Joey Logano again, and in my mind, he's the sneaky favorite for the championship, and a lot of aspects of this playoff run for Logano remind me of 2018 when he won his first title. For starters, he has not been the best driver this season. Now, granted, 2018 was a different situation where it was really the big 3 with Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, and Martin Truex Jr. It seemed like every week one of those guys would win. This year, Logano, I mean, he's in the mix with everybody else. There's really no clear-cut favorite in NASCAR this year. Maybe Chase Elliott, maybe Denny Hamlin, but Logano is definitely not the favorite. So he's kind of coming in underrated. That's number 1. Number 2, Logano has been quiet and consistent this season. The years where Logano gets into a lot of trouble and has run-ins with drivers, those are usually the years where he's not able to go all the way. Logano had the one incident with William Byron at Darlington. Aside from that, it's been a very clean season for Joey, so that reminds me of it. Hey, Noah, appreciate the time. Obviously, it's been a great stretch for you guys lately with the 3 wins. How crucial was that for you? Not only, like Matt mentioned, with the momentum but also just to get some playoff points as kind of sort of a buffer, especially when you've got some of those wild card tracks like Talladega and the Roval ahead.
Yeah, it kind of shows you where you're at. Shows most important thing is those playoff points, stage wins, race wins, just getting those playoff points. That's crucial in my opinion. And the thing that we've been focused on all year to build that buffer once we get in the playoffs. So that's the most important thing is those points for us.
Thanks. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Well, continuing here on Motorsports Today, I'm Eddie Kalegi. Joining me now is one of the most interesting people in motorsports. He races part-time in the NASCAR Xfinity and Truck Series, while also serving as a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy Reserve. Jesse Iwuji, welcome to Motorsports Today. Appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you so much for having me.
So before we get to your racing career, I was doing my research and I saw you played high school football as well, and then actually played free safety at Navy. And of course, I'm a Rutgers guy, and I saw you actually got some playing time experience in the 2009 game against Ohio State. So what was that environment like, playing at the Horseshoe and playing against one of the top teams in college football?
Yeah, playing in the Horseshoe was awesome. Even playing against Rutgers, I my sophomore year played against what's his name, Ray Rice. Wasn't a good game for us. We got smashed because that was the year Rutgers was like nationally ranked in the top 10, top 5 or something like that.
Well, let's look back at 2022, a great year for you. And first question, Emmitt Smith, how did that partnership come about? And, as a NASCAR fan, it's really nice to see people from outside of the motorsports business, whether it's Michael Jordan, Pitbull in the Cup Series, and now Emmitt Smith with you, getting involved in the sport, putting their names on teams, getting involved, and really showing that people outside of the motorsports community care a lot about NASCAR.
Yeah, it's really incredible getting Emmitt Smith on board as one of our co-owners as well. He's been really awesome to work with. It's cool getting on these meetings with them each week and knowing that, like, I used to watch him playing football, running over a lot of defenses in the NFL and becoming the all-time greatest at the position. Like, it's cool to know that I watched him as a kid and now I'm partnered with him on the team.
As being a car that was running for most of the race towards the back of that pack, what the perspective is you're trying to navigate through the big one if it happens in front of you, or just trying to keep your car clean so you can put yourself in position to potentially compete for a victory if crazy things happen, as they often do at Daytona and Talladega.
Yeah, so really the whole plan for the race was to stay back, just stay back the entire time because we knew it was going to get crazy. It was late, all these different factors. We just knew it was going to get crazy, and it's Daytona too as well. So we knew, hey, let's not get stuck. Like, we could have easily, at any given point, I can just start making my way up there, right? Especially at Daytona, Talladega, all that stuff. We got a car that can do that. But the thing is, you're not going to go win the race on lap 3.
Joining me now, he's a turn announcer for Motor Racing Network, their NASCAR radio broadcast. He's also a PA announcer for NASCAR National Series events and a WRSU alum himself. Tim Catalfamo, thanks so much for joining us here on Motorsports Today. Just for those who are curious, what are your regular responsibilities right now in NASCAR media?
Sure. So I am a turn announcer first and foremost for the Motor Racing Network. So I am one of the voices that you hear on the radio broadcast of all the Craftsman Truck Series races, Xfinity Series, and Cup Series broadcasts.
So let's talk about the turn announcing for a bit, because I've always been fascinated by this, especially when you got cars going around 180, 190 miles an hour. It's different than a TV broadcast, because for people who watch NASCAR on Fox or on NBC, aside from when NBC switches it up for the road course races and get Mike Bagley in there on NBC, it's one play-by-play announcer with driver analysts that cover the full track. But for you, when you're a turn announcer, you're in a different spot and there's a few different play-by-play announcers, and you really have to make the most of maybe that 6, 8, 10 seconds when you're on the air to paint the picture for a listener who's not watching. And it's very difficult for NASCAR. I feel like certain sports may lend themselves better to a radio broadcast, and NASCAR and auto racing in general, it's a bit of a challenge, but you guys do such a great job painting the picture. I'm curious, what are some of the strategies you employ and how it's really different from calling a race, say, on television, like a Mike Joy or a Rick Allen?
Well, first of all, it's two totally different mediums, right? So television, you have pictures to describe the story, right? You can use a replay monitor to talk about the last wreck, whereas opposed to in radio, you really kind of call it for the first time, and that's really about all you get because you can't go back and revisit it, especially not if you don't have a television monitor in front of you. TV, you tell more of the stories of the race. And you have more time to bring in an analyst or two to kind of describe what's happening, why it's happening. There's less play-by-play involved on television. Mike Joy and everyone who's up there in the television booth does a fantastic job and have done for many, many years. What we do on the radio side, though, is very different. And I think you kind of alluded to a little bit when you were asking that question. You only maybe have about 7-8 seconds max to get out what you need to say.
As I said with this show, while we're going to focus on motorsports in general in the professional world, I want to bring a Rutgers spin to it since this is the Rutgers University student radio station, and I'm joined by a senior here who actually competes for the Scarlet Knights in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. He helped me out a few minutes ago when we were talking about Kyle Busch's move. Dan Buttafuoco. Dan, thanks for joining us here for this interview once again.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So I just want to ask you generally, when did you first develop an interest in motorsports and then eventually in virtual racing?
My interest in racing is very unique. It all started from the Pixar movie Cars. Ever since I was born, I always loved cars. I think my first word was Chevrolet somehow. But